are now on to a hot-button issue with complexities galore. Iran's nuclear program. There have been 4 rounds of talks. And since then, US and Iran, they've made some very incremental progress. Of course, not conclusive by a stretch. As far as a nuclear deal is concerned, it looks farther than ever before. Trump seeks complete nuclear disarmament. Iran believes that there's elbow room. It downplays Washington's threats, saying Iran will survive. Deal or not, now you should keep. Now, why is it that we should be caring about the Iran deal? Why is it that it matters to the world? Well, how does it impact global stability is the most important part. And I'm going to explain to our viewers exactly why is it that Iran's nuclear arsenal, if at all it happens, why it impacts everybody. And this is the region where Iran's writ plays large. And there is, of course, this axis of organizations, terror organizations, leading all the way back to a country that doesn't have a nuclear arsenal right now, but is working towards it. There is Lebanon. In Lebanon, there is Hezbollah. Then, of course, there is Hamas. There is Iraq's Kataib Hezbollah. Of course, in Yemen, there are the Houthi rebels. They are the ones who've been firing those long-range missiles that impact the entire Red Sea. Next, in Palestinian territories, of course, there is Hamas, and in Syria, then there is the other as well. Then there is one in Bahrain as well that is there. This is the entire nexus of organizations, of outfits that go back to the axis that leads to Iran, a country that still doesn't have, as I said, a nuclear weapon. But imagine how this will reshape if it does have a nuclear weapon, if it does have a nuclear arsenal that can have more than just civilian purposes. And that's the reason why we need to care about this. That's the reason why we need to know which way the world and the world's peace negotiations, peace ambitions are going as far as the nuclear arsenal of a potential nuclear arsenal of Iran is concerned. And what's the story right now? This report brings us up to speed with exactly what is happening as far as Iran-US talks are concerned. Take a look.
Iran's nuclear program has long been a critical fault line in the Middle East, a symbol of national pride for Tehran, while a source of anxiety for the West. Since the early days of its nuclear program, Iran has insisted that its nuclear ambitions remain focused on civilian purposes, aimed at energy production and medical research, and not nuclear weapons. Yet, suspicions run deep. From the US to the global nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency is skeptical of Tehran's true intentions after Iran's secret nuclear enrichment facilities were exposed in 2002, breaking the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and eroding global trust. Today, Iran reportedly possesses over 275 kgs of uranium, enriched to 60%. That's dangerously close to the 90% threshold needed for a nuclear weapon. The world has tried to contain Iran's nuclear ambitions over the past 50 years, the most significant example being the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, signed between Iran and the P5+1 countries, including the US, Russia, China, among others. That deal puts strict limits on Iran's uranium enrichment in exchange for sanctions relief.
از امروز دیگر برنامه هسته‌ای ایران با بهانه‌های واهی به عنوان تهدید صلح و امنیت برای جهان و برای منطقه نیست، بلکه برنامه هسته‌ای وسیله‌ای برای فناوری نوین در مسیر توسعه کشور و ثبات و امنیت منطقه خواهد بود.
Yet in a move that upended the Middle East forever, Donald Trump unilaterally exited the deal in 2018, reinstating US sanctions on Tehran, leaving Iran to expand its nuclear infrastructure in retaliation. The sticking point remains Iran sees uranium enrichment as a sovereign right under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, while the West fears a nuclear-armed Tehran is a threat to global stability, while Israel sees Iran and its nuclear program as an existential threat given their contentious history. While indirect talks between US and Iranian officials are ongoing, with both sides signaling that a deal is close, the stakes could not be higher. Beyond the geopolitical chessboard, a collapsed deal could mean higher oil prices, regional instability, and a renewed nuclear arms race in the Middle East. Washington demands a complete disarmament of Iran's nuclear program. Tehran seeks a fair and honorable agreement that allows limited nuclear activity in exchange for sanctions relief. Only time will tell whether diplomacy will be able to diffuse one of the most dangerous flashpoints in global geopolitics. With Disha Bagchi, Parmeshwar Bava for NDTV.
So we put the context for you. We've explained to you why exactly Iran's nuclear pile, possible nuclear pile, and talks with US are of such importance to the world. We told you the fact, what happens, how the region will change, if at all, Iran does get the nuclear arsenal. What is the status of the talks? We told all of you. Now we're going to come to the fault line that exists in this entire possibilities that this entire issue raises. Let's put that out. First fault line that we are exposing as far as one within Iran. You have the two blocks in Iran, one reformists. In fact, the present president has come on a reformist agenda. He puts those creds out there for everyone to see. But does that clash completely with the supreme leader? Remember, he is the big boss in Iran, the final word. He feels that US is an untrustworthy adversary. And in fact, that has been the bedrock of the US-Iranian relationship. In contrast, Pezeshkian thinks that at some point of time, we've got to talk simply because we've got the American sanctions to be lifted. And the only way for that is that there is progress on those talks. So that's the first fault line. Which way the political thought process in Iran is going to go is going to be extremely important to decide whether or not these talks progress. Next up, then the second fault line that exists right now, this is within Iran itself, that there is such division as far as the thought process is concerned. Now let's talk about the division of thought in the P5 club. P5, the big five club, the big boys club who essentially decide everything that matters in the world. One can dispute how effective their writ really is, but the fact is they are the ones who are largely the decision-making bodies, for want of a better word. There is a division as well. You have Russia and China on one side. They support Iran and they oppose sanctions. It has nothing to do with Iran. It has everything to do with America. The three of them, that is Russia, China, Iran, now form a very close coterie of an anti-American bloc. They've been doing military exercises together, whether it's in the Black Sea or whether it's in other parts of the world. They've been conducting regular military exercises. There have been exchanges of economic possibilities as well, all with a very clear view that it is an anti-America bloc. On the other side, of course, is where you have US and Europe. Europe remains neutral, another big fault line, because at the end of the day, it's, as I said, it's America versus an anti-America bloc. The third and the final fault line that we are putting out is that as far as Iran is concerned, yes, US seeks nuclear disarmament and it wants these talks to move ahead. And as far as Russia and China are concerned, well, they've been providing financial support to Iran to essentially ensure that they prop up the regime as long as they can and it can withstand the sanctions. That's the second part. Now let's get into the other fault line that we are talking about. Iran says that it cannot trust the US to honor deals. And at the other end, you have US saying that Iran could continue uranium enrichment, something that it has huge ramifications. And lastly, Iran wants the talks to be limited to just nuclear issues. They want that, you know what, we're going to be putting out a nuclear enrichment program. We're only going to talk about that, nothing else, because we're only doing it for civilian purposes, something that America doesn't agree. They say that you've got to bring the elephant in the room. That is, that are you going to create some sort of a ballistic missile and disrupt the whole region? That is another fault line, another premise on which there are deep divisions and why there is very little progress that is being made on this issue. This is exactly what the crux of the entire matter is concerned, viewers. Which brings me, in fact, now to talk about the final point as far as this issue is concerned, that is blinkers off. Well, viewers, US and Iran have held talks. They've made partial progress in the past, and then all of it was rolled back. An interim pact was signed in 2013. There was a Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA, that was signed in 2015, only for it to all be rolled back. in search of a better deal under Trump's earlier administration. But there are chances that Iran is now closer to a nuclear bomb than ever before. So there goes your best deal on the table, doesn't it? In Trump's eternal hunt for the best possible deal, there are multiple fault lines that are now coming to fore. If Iran continues its nuclear enrichment, the entire Middle East could flare up. Why? Because Iran does not recognize Israel, and the latter faces an existential threat for Iran. We played out that axis of terror outfits that lead all the way to Tehran, didn't we? That is an axis that exists without a nuclear arsenal. If it does, well, Middle East could really do flare up. Add to it the fact that if talks fail, the Iran-Saudi Arabia relationship will undergo a major change. There will be some sort of a greater rapprochement that will take place between the two sides. The 2019 Houthi attack on Aramco was largely left unaddressed by Washington during Trump's earlier tenure. It made Riyadh realize that it is strategically more advantageous to have better ties with Tehran, a Shia-Sunni fault line that has for long defined and shaped the region. It could be reshaped once again if these talks fail. Well, viewers, on that note, we come to an end of this edition of Fault Lines. We're going to come back, expose more divides, greater divisions around the world. Till then, thanks so much for watching.